you, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. I, Dr. Akshata Gupta, welcome you all on this beautiful Saturday afternoon at this growth-oriented workshop with Dr. D.J. Sutarwala, organized by the Homeopath. At the Homeopath, we are trying to build a powerful community of homeopath which can empower, connect, and grow with each other by learning, networking, and sharing. Let's move forward to this powerful workshop which can help you in your day-to-day growth. And the expert speaker who is going to lead this workshop is Dr. D.J. Sutarwala, sir. He has done his BHMS in 1992 from Calcutta Homeopathic Medical College and Hospital, practicing homeopathy since 1993 in Kolkata and since 1996 in Bashirat, a district town of Kolkata. He has also published a book, Dietetic Restrictions and Recommendations in Homeopathic Practice in 1993. He has been appointed as a lecturer in Nitai Charan Chakrabarti Medical College and Hospital for 5 years. Acquired a diploma in IACH from Greece in 2009. Hello, sir, and thank you for sparing out time for us and our audience. We are looking forward for the knowledge and learning at this power-packed workshop. We will be going to cover the following sessions today. Session 1, difficulties during homeopathic case taking and how to overcome them. Second, selection of potency. I also request delegates to put their questions in Q&A box, which can take in the last segment of the workshop. So, sir, over to you.
Thank you very much. In the first place, it's always a pleasure to talk about homeopathy at any platform, at any stage.
Excuse me, sir, we are unable to see you.
Exactly. Do I have to shift the camera?
Yes, sir. We want to see you actually.
What are you seeing actually?
Camera.
Yeah, you're seeing a back camera. Now it's all right?
No, sir, we cannot see you.
Just a second. Okay, I'll do one thing. Somebody, just shift it. Now you can see me? But always wait. The camera is not changing here.
Sir, not seeing you again.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Right?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Perfect. So, it's always a pleasure to talk about homeopathy at any podium. When Dr. Rajesh Soni approached me, and after that, when Dr. Akshata approached me, so it was always a go for me, but it was very unfortunate that the dates had to be readjusted and readjusted again for different reasons. So let us start. I think everybody is comfortable with Hindi and English, or should it be only English?
So I think all are comfortable with all. Anything, I think so.
You're comfortable with? No, you will not be comfortable with Bengali.
Yes, definitely not Bengali.
Yes. Don't know Hindi.
There's someone who said he don't know Hindi. There's someone who said he don't know Hindi.
Don't know Hindi, okay. Fine. No issues. We will limit ourselves totally to English. That is why I was asking, because see what happens is when the flow of speaking comes, you know, when the flow of speaking comes, that is why I needed to see the participants, because when the flow of speaking comes, to me it can come in any language, but if the participants are not comfortable with the language, then, and this is in fact one of the first problems which you may face during case taking, you know. We'll cover it up, but to start with, you know, I'll tell a case of mine. In the initial phases of my life, we had a patient who was speaking Bhojpuri, and at that point of time I was not very conversant with, though Bhojpuri and Hindi are very close, but I was not conversant, and the patient was looking at her husband and answering a question as if she was telling her husband, and then husband would translate something, and husband would translate half of the things, and half of the things he will say, nahi, 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 iska koi darkar nahi. And so the whole case taking had become very difficult, which is very important. Today's question which you have raised, difficulties in case taking. But before we go into difficulties in a homeopathic case taking, first of all, we have to know very well what actually is homeopathic case taking. Now, can this be, Akshata, can this be a question answer thing? I mean, interactive session?
Yes, sir, definitely. Those who want can raise
because
their
I would like to know I would like to know your views,
Wow, that would be great, sir.
that we can build up and we can start a discussion. So,
Perfect.
what actually is a homeopathic case taking? What does a homeopathic case taking do? What are the objectives of a homeopathic case taking? Can anybody tell me? Will anybody tell me? Oh no, it's going to take a lot of time. I mean, come on, anybody?
Individualization.
Yes. Individualization, selection of medicine, individualization, and through individualization, selection of the indicated medicine. Yes, definitely. Then diagnosis and other things which go with any case taking, any medical case taking. Yes. And anything else?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I would like to add. What is case taking is your question, right? So it is not only knowing about the patient's difficulties, but as an observer to start and understand right from the time the patient enters into your clinic. So the posture, the expression, the body language, all of that matters, along with the symptoms or similarities or whatever he wants to convey. So we need to see it as a good observer, and then of course everything will fall into its place of individualization and all of that once the case taking begins.
So what you are saying, Dr. Akshata, is that being an observer is a very important requirement, prerequisite of a case taking. Agreed. Being an observer, Hahnemann was very strong on this point, and he said that an unprejudiced observer, well aware of futility. He was talking of not only an observer. See, today we'll be talking about this later up in the case, later up in the session. The objectives, somebody said very rightly, the basic objectives of finding is individualization, and through individualization, coming to the selection of the right medicine. That, of course, in order to come to an individualization, what Dr. Akshata said is very right. There are three components. One component is what the patient is narrating. Second component is what the patient party are narrating. And third component, which is what Dr. Akshata said, is what the physician himself is observing and perceiving. So besides these two basic objectives, one is individualization, and second, coming to a diagnosis, etc., etc. Diagnosis, prognosis, management, etc., etc. That is a third component which we most of the times miss out, and which we have never been taught in the colleges like that. And that is, a good case taking is a good non-therapeutic tool in itself. Do you agree?
Completely, sir. Completely. Yes. Being non-biased. Being non-biased.
And I mean, a case taking, you see, when I was in the first year of my study, there was a debate, and in the debate I had taken a part, and one of the stalwarts of that time, at that point of time, he was the judge, Dr. Jain Kanjilal. So he had told me something which at that point of time had simply amazed me, and I could not understand. But now, over a period of 25 to 27 years, I'm just beginning to understand it. What he had said was that a good homeopath is a person that when the patient comes to you, when he walks out, he smilingly says that I'm at least 50 to 70% better even without taking a medicine. I said, how is this possible? Unless you give a stimulus, unless you give a medicine, how is the patient going to improve? It's taken me 26 to 27 years to understand that what he meant was actually that you can utilize case taking also as a non-therapeutic tool for the development of the patient, for the betterment of the patient. Now, today, when we are going to talk in terms of, I think we agree on this. Are there any questions on this? Since nobody has responded, I take for granted that there are no questions. Now, when we go on to difficulties in case taking, we have to keep in mind both of these difficulties. Difficulties in acquiring the picture, that is number one. Acquiring the picture meaning acquiring the idea of the sickness which the patient is presenting. And second is difficulties in progressing with the non-therapeutic aspect of treatment of the case taking. Now, if we discuss these two in details, I can assure you it's going to take a very long time. It will take 5 to 6 hours time. So what we will do is we will be just touching up, and at a later stage, as and when if any questions arise in your mind, we will be treating those questions. Now, the first part is ascertaining the sickness of the patient. Now, in this ascertaining the sickness of the patient, there is always a methodology, right? Dr. Akshata very rightly said that the case taking actually begins from the moment the patient enters your clinic. If you have a waiting room in your clinic, the manner in which the patient is sitting in the waiting room, and from the waiting room, when the patient walks into your clinic, how he or she walks, how he or she carries himself, how he or she sits, not only how he or she sits, where does he or she sit? I could have shown you. Suppose it is something like you have in front of your table, you have 2 benches in front of you and 1 bench on the side of you, 1 chair on the side of you. Now, which one is the patient selecting? That also has a lot of bearing. What position the patient is talking while the patient is narrating the symptoms. You know, some patients lean forwards, some patients sit backwards. All of this conveys a particular meaning. Now, the methodology is of the case taking in brief is we make the patient comfortable at first and we start with the narration. Now, from wherever, at whichever point the patient wants to start the narration, the patient can start the narration. Some patients will start from past history. You know, from where do I start? Doctor, 17 years back, I had this problem, and then I had this problem, and then I had this problem. And that is how the case taking starts. Some patients, most of the patients start from presenting complaints. And as you know, as an expert physician, as a homeopath, you take the patient through the whole journey of the patient's sickness in order to evolve the sickness. Now, the difficulties arise basically, since we are not supposed to talk about case taking, we are supposed to talk about difficulties which come during case taking. These difficulties basically come from 2 places. One, difficulty on the part of the physician. And second is actually where, because of the patient's vitality, the vitality being very bad, the patient is not being in a position to manifest symptoms. So we have 2 difficulties basically. One is some error on the part of the physician. First of all, let us talk about that. I'd like to give an example. In the early phases of my practice, it was very difficult for me to go and see a very moneyed person in his or her house. House calls in the house of a very rich person, because at that point of time, my life circumstances were such that I was practically hands out for money. I did not have money, and I just started practice. My first month I had earned something like 750 rupees, and I had to pay rent of 500 rupees or so. So you can very well imagine how I was managing at that point of time. At that point of time, when the patient came to me in the clinic, whatever be the background, I could easily do a case taking. but I had to do a lot of house calls at that point of time. Whenever when I went to a house call, and if it was a middle class person, middle class family, it would be all right. But if it was a rich family, I would mess up the case taking totally. I could not do case taking properly at all. What would happen is practically I would start sweating. I'll tell you an incident what had happened. I'd gone to this patient where from the door, from the driveway, there was a big driveway. So I went in a auto rickshaw. I got down and the Darwan came and asked me. He said, "Yes, who are you? Whom do you want?" So I said, "I'm such and such. I'm Dr. 𝐃𝐤𝐴. I was supposed to see such and such person." So he said, "Wait." He says, "Wait." And then he called up those people and then he said, "Okay, please come." And after entering the gate, I had to walk practically 5 minutes walking to the house. By that time, I had already started sweating. And the idea of case taking, and believe me, the idea of case taking and idea of finding the right medicine had gone out of my mind. The only thing in my mind was how sooner I will run away. Now, this is my fault. And this will mess up the case taking totally. What I did in such cases, these cases we lost. Practically, we could do nothing. When 4, 5, 6, 10, 15 such cases happened, I could understood. It was shown to me by my teachers and perhaps God that this is your fault. And one day I sat and I found out a solution. What was the solution which I found out to this? Any person whom I felt, I stopped doing home calls and I started calling everybody to the clinic. That way, gradually things changed. Now, these limitations, this difficulty in case taking will vary from individual to individual. One of my students, he could not take a proper case taking when a young female came in front of him. He would start stuttering. He would start stammering. He would have a speech difficulty, and invariably he botched up the case. And then one day we were talking, and he tells me that, "Sir, this is what is happening." You see, so in such cases, each one of us, each one of you, as physicians, you will have certain soft corners. You will have certain negative zones. These are your own negative zones. And these will create serious difficulties in case taking. For example, you are prejudiced to that extent that you feel that a cancer patient is incurable. Suppose, I'm just giving you an instance, and a carcinoma patient walks in. Because of your prejudice that this patient is incurable and nothing can be done for him, believe me, your case taking will be at an error. You will not be able to do case taking, and this would become a difficult case. So this is the first parameter where a homeopath, when you are doing the case taking, you also have to be aware of yourself. And this is very easier said than done. It's very easy to say. But this is a practical problem which each one of you will face. And each one of you has to overcome that in your own way. Many a times when I go to seminars, the questions asked are, how do you do a case taking of an infant? It is so difficult. How do you take the mental symptoms? Taking mental symptoms are so difficult. Because actually taking mental symptoms are not difficult. Is not at all difficult. It's very easy. But it is blocks within ourselves, within our own personality. Because we are a homeopath afterwards and we are a human being first. As human beings, we have certain limitations. And it is these limitations which, when during the case taking, when they are present, they make the whole process of case taking very difficult. Do we agree? So can somebody tell me that what problems they have because of their personality? And then we can talk about how to overcome them. Anybody? Hey, come on. Come on, yeah. This is a learning thing. We are not exposing ourselves. Let's learn. Let's learn. Even today, I'll tell you something. Even today, many a times it happens, somebody comes and all of a sudden that urge comes within me that I have to impress that person, that I'm a good doctor. Very few times it comes. Maybe once in a year or so. But when that urge comes, somebody comes and I have that urge that I have to impress that person that I'm a good homeopath, and my case taking goes out for a 6. I cannot do case taking, and it becomes very difficult. I mess up that case. So what I try to do is, the moment, see how I overcome this situation. Now, wanting to impress somebody, it is coming from inside me. I cannot do anything about it. Can I? So what I do, I have a very big chamber. I immediately get up from that point. I go inside. We have a Thakurgarh inside, that is a God's room inside, a prayer room inside. I go there and I look in front of, there are certain images of gods and my Guru Maharaj is sitting there. And I look in front of them and I said, come on, what the hell? Abhi bhi aisa ho raha hai. I'm sorry, the gentleman didn't know Hindi. Still this is happening. Come on, I have to overcome this. And the next moment, that feeling to impress somebody has gone. I come back and then I can do my tasting.
Sir, you said about the barriers, no? One barrier is when the Adivasi people in an area come. The language which they use and the language which you use is a mess. You cannot understand anything.
I totally understand. So that, agree. Now this problem used to happen to me when they introduced me, when Akshata introduced me, she talked of Bashirat. Now, Bashirat is a district town and there people speak Bengali, but that Bengali is of a different dialect, is not the Bengali to which I am tuned to. So they would use terminology, they would use such terminology which I would not know. So there you need to have two things. Number one, in such cases, you need to have a good interpreter. You need to, who is going to interpret exactly what the patient is saying. This is number one. Number two, in such cases, what you have to do is, you have to make your observation a little bit stronger. Remember one thing, aphorism number 9, Handyman, he talks of the vitality and he says that the vitality expresses itself from the very being of the patient, from the whole of the patient. When you are talking in terms of totality of symptoms, you are saying that it is the outwardly reflected picture of the internal essence of the disease, that is of the affection of the vital force. That means each and everything of my being, each and every persona of my being is going to tell you something. Now, through the language is one of them. When through the language you are inhibited, you have to find other means. In such cases, your observation has to be strong enough. You see, we are D is equals to MC square, right?
Yeah.
Where really D is equals to, where energy and mass is interrelated, is directly proportional with a constant C. Now, similarly, the totality of symptoms, in order to bring out totality of symptoms, 3 components: patient's narration, patient participation, and the physician's observation. Now, in any case, if one part is missing, then the other part, to get the same result, the other part has to be made stronger. So if you are not being in a position to go through language, you have to have a translator. You have to have a good interpreter, number one. And second, your observation has to be made that much stronger. If you make your observation stronger, what the patient is see, whenever the patient is talking, I'm talking, right? You are understanding me, right? But what are you seeing? What are you observing? Somebody tell me. Okay. You are hearing my speech, right? You are seeing me also. Now look at me. Now look at me. We have met today. We are talking about symptoms. We are talking about case taking. We are talking about difficulties in case taking. What is the difference between these two?
Sir, you are a very enthusiast person, always willing to teach, is what is very much observed.
Yes. So how do you know this? How do you know this?
Your body language.
Any speech, wait, exactly. Any speech has two components. The person who talked to me about Adivasi, I would like to tell her, any speech has two components. One is what the speech is actually meaning. Right? The actual meaning of it. And second is the feelings behind that speech.
Yes.
The emotions, and there are a lot of things behind that speech. It is something like, I love you. I love you. I love you. See, that is, I'm saying that I love you, but that is no iota of love behind the speech.
Yes.
You understand?
Expression of the feeling. Yes. Expression of
so the way the person, we as homeopaths, we have to catch on. We have to catch on, and specifically see, we as Indians, when you go to Western side, I mean, Europeans or Americans or Britishers especially, they don't believe in showing their emotions. So their speech to a great extent is devoid of emotions. But we as Indians, we are a highly emotional group. We are a highly emotional group. So in our speech, there is always and always going to be emotions behind it. What you have to do is, you have to learn to catch these emotions. Once you do this, even you don't understand what the patient is saying, but through the emotion, if you understand, see, the whole idea is not to understand, is to understand the sickness.
Yes.
Whatever way you do. Right. So this is one way out of, as you said, the Adivasi thing. Now, these two, each one of us will have our own problems. Some female might have a problem in taking case of a male person. I had a friend.
Sir, want to ask something.
Yeah, tell me.
Yeah, sir, can you give a brief about case taking initially, then start with the problems of case taking?
But if I give you a case taking in brief, I think I did that actually. Didn't I do that? Okay, for your sake, we'll go about it. See, once the patient walks in, the first thing which you have to do about before the patient starts his narration is make the patient comfortable. Because if the patient is not comfortable, then he or she is not going to volunteer any information. Right? Agreed. So how you make the patient comfortable will depend upon your personality and your perceived personality of the patient. To some patient, you can say that, please be seated. Come. So, and then you start. Let the patient start from where the patient wants to start. Don't have a fixed thing that you have to start from presenting complaints or you have to start from past history, or let the patient begin. And don't say that, for heaven's sake, don't say that what is your problem? I had made this mistake of telling one of my patients, one of my very domineering patients, that what is problem? And he said, well, if I knew what my problem was, I would not have come to you, doctor. And I did not have next opening line. So, and then you bring out the picture. You go through the presenting complaints. Most of your patients will start with presenting complaints. You build up on presenting complaints, modalities, etc., etc. Go into past history, go into family history, and each subsequent question should be somehow related to the first. We know that we have very importance in bringing out the generalities, right? Now, say homeopathic generalities are very important for prescription. Now, suppose a patient is saying that I am having a headache. Doctor, I am having a headache and I have this pain, and this pain has been there since, say, 3 years. Now, if my next question is that what do you like to eat? Right, because I am supposed to take homeopathic generalities. This is a very illogical question. You cannot do it. This is not to be done. The best way would be Okay, since when is your headache more? Is it related with food? No, it is not related with food. How is your appetite? Now, when you are asking, is it related with food? And the patient says no. Still, if you say, how is your appetite? These two questions are linked and the patient would not mind. Many a time, this is a technique. This is the art part, What happens is, how do you take mental symptoms? Many a times, if you ask the patient initially, do you become angry or do you like mixing with people or how are you emotionally? The patient will say, go jump in 𝐒𝐞𝐬𝐬. 𝐒𝐿𝐬 is a river close to Calcutta. I don't want to share my emotions. But you frame the question at such a particular point of time, and the patient will come out with everything. This is a skill. This is the art of case taking. You go on doing that.
Sir?
Yes.
Yes, sir, exactly. I mean, sorry, I'm not interrupting. I just thought you have paused there. That's why I'm saying. Sir, can we put it as we have to thread the lines of questions? So threading is very important. Where to begin, where to stop, or where to continue. So threading is very important, right?
You are not going to stop.
Correct.
You are going to stop when the patient wants you to stop. You have
exactly. Yes.
You have no liberty to stop.
Correct.
You will go where the patient takes you. It is
exactly.
The waves of the
flow,
ocean.
Flow.
The waves of the ocean.
Flow.
How they flow. And when you are surfing, if you have ever swum on the sea, you will see the waves take you. You go along with the flow. That is the case taking. That is the procedure. That is the best procedure known to me. There may be other approaches, but this is the best approach known to me. I have been trying to do this since last 25 to 27 years, and it's all right for me. There may be other procedures, there may be other methodologies, but I'm not very much aware of other methodologies. For a beginner, this is very difficult, right? For a beginner to go with the flow is very difficult, because a beginner, remember when you all passed out, it was always there in the mind that have I collected all the points? Collecting all the points was important. So as a beginner, you will have to collect all points. So try to collect them in a logical way. Start from presenting complaints, get a detailing of presenting complaints, those presenting complaints. Say if the patient is having a stomach problem, then while taking the stomach problem or the abdominal problem, take his homeopathic generalities as regards to food, aversion, intolerances. If the patient is having a psychological problem, headache which is aggravated after tension, so later you take his sleep, how are his tension levels and how are his psychological levels. In the initial phases, you will do like this. But then gradually, if you are a student of homeopathy, if you continue yourself to be as a student of homeopathy, I assure you, you will learn and your case takings will improve. So this is how initially goes. And actually, a case taking ends once you finish up everything which you are supposed to know about the patient. Then comes the time when you do physical examination of the patient. To my mind, the case taking actually ends. The case taking actually ends when the physical examination has been done. Because believe me, the three criteria which we said: patient's narration, patient party's narration, and a physician's observation. The physician's observation also includes the physical examination. I remember we had a patient who was brought down to our chamber, maybe I'm talking of 97, 98. He was brought into in an unconscious state in our clinic. He had a very high fever, and we made him lie down on our examination table. And while I was examining him, his temperature was 104.6 or something, axillary. And then while touching him, his pulse was exaggerated. I could see that his legs were pretty cold. Comparatively, legs were pretty cold. And they had given me a particular history, which I'm purposefully not telling you. Now tell me, when the legs were cold, it immediately, in such a kind of fever, it immediately rung me up one medicine. And what was the medicine? Among other things, Legs are cold, specifically during fever. Bukhar, yes, fever, legs are cold. High fever and legs are cold. The person is unconscious. Okay. Annika. Right. And these patients had given me some history where Annika was coming in. And when I could see this, it was to me a straight case of Annika. And we prescribed Annika in a centesimal potency. And within 1 hour, they took the child home. And I said, call me back. Within 1 hour, they said the temperature has started coming down and it came down. So see, the examination, the physical examination of the patient is a very, very important component. It tells you so many things. Once you do that, then the case taking is over. I suppose this enters, this completes the gentleman's question, the doctor who asked me that go through case taking in brief. So
thank you, sir.
This was in brief. Now we are talking about difficulties. So the first point of difficulties are your individual's difficulties. And these have to be managed by yourself. First of all, you have to identify your discomfort zones. Let us call them discomfort zones. Right? And then you have to work upon it. If you can't work, it is better, if you don't know how to overcome that, ask a friend that this is the problem which I'm having. Don't be hesitant. How can I ask? No. Ask your friend. If there are no friends, if you don't have good friends, because believe me, good friends are very difficult to come by. Most of us are pest friends. If you don't, go to your teacher. By your teacher, I am not meaning teacher who is teaching you in colleges. I'm not only meaning that. Each one of you must be having a mentor. You're having a teacher from whom you are learning. Homeopathy is something which you learn from your teacher by sitting at his or her feet. I've learned whatever has been taught to me. I've learned by sitting at the feet of my teachers. Notably among them, Dr. Vishwanath Sen Gupta, Reverend Maharaj, who was at Baranagar Ramakrishna Mission, and George Vitulkas. You learn. So there is no harm. उसके बाद भी किसी को problem हो रहा है, if still you people are facing problems, at any point of time, Dr. DJ Sutawala is open. But you will have to become naked in front of me. That means you will have to tell me your problem. जैसे that girl said कि आदिवासी के सामने में वो हुआ था. I will have to understand that person and then we can come out with a solution. And then we can see whether it works or not. The next case takings are better. So this was about the individual's mistake, which is not actually a difficulty. This is an apparent difficulty because of the limitation of the doctor who is involved in the case taking. Now we go to those cases which are actually difficult. And these are very difficult. And what are these group of cases? These group of cases are where the vitality is very sick. The vitality is almost incurable. We know, according to the study of organon of medicine, that the stronger the vitality, more clearer the sickness picture. More characteristic the symptom, easier to find the medicine. Which means the worse of the vitality is, if the vitality is very bad, getting the picture is going to be very tough. You are not going to find any symptoms, or you are at most you are not going to get a picture. Here to find out the picture is going to be very tough. And these cases, if you are lucky, you won't get them early in your life. And if you get them early in life, you will mess them up. If you are very lucky, you are going to a teacher. You will see your teacher dealing with such cases. And then gradually, all of a sudden, it will happen in your chamber that you also dealt with a case. This is how it has happened with me. To do these kind of case takings, you have to unlock the case. You have to understand the vitality of the patient. And believe me, each person's vitality, it is so individualistic that is not going to express itself through one means only.
Hello.
What I'm trying to say is that in a very bad case of vitality, it is not necessary that you will get only the particular symptom or you will get a common symptom. Remember what Hahnemann had said about chronic diseases, case taking, and when he talked of accessory symptoms? He said some very casually mentioned symptom by the patient may be so important and may prove to be so characteristic that that can be a key opening in search of the blood.
Sir, good afternoon.
PQRS. PQRS is what he had mentioned, right? Right, sir?
Uncommon peculiar characteristics.
Clear and rare. Yes.
Clear and rare symptoms.
Sir,
Right?
I have one question.
Yeah. Tell me.
Sir, actually, the details of basic what you discussed till now, it was so nicely, but I have one doubt regarding that when the patient comes to the clinic, how it enter, how he sit. So can we have some example with the medicines, along with medicines, that this kind of persons is coming to the clinic, and if he sit
We
like
can.
this,
We can. But see, we can. But please don't mix it up in the sense we can. I can show you. But don't get an image in your mind that always this patient will be like this.
no, sir, only for clarity, only for
No.
simplify the case.
I'm for clarity only I'm saying. Because what happens is, see, generally what happens is when a pulsatilla patient comes and talks with you, the pulsatilla patient will always have a tendency to lean forward. Right? Wants to be close to you. If providingly, when will the pulsatilla patient will lean forward? If the pulsatilla patient feels that you are a very affectionate person and the patient wants affection from you, will be leaning forward. But that does not mean that all pulsatilla patients will lean forward. A classical, we had a lycopodium patient, wait, I'll show you. Would always come and sit like this. Are you seeing me?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You're seeing my chair? I'm reclining back and I'm sitting like this. As if, and I'm not sitting in front of you. Huh? I'm not sitting in front of this person. I'm sitting there. So he's as if he's not, I'm sitting there front and he's slightly on the side, as if he's, to him, I'm not that much important. Now, this lycopodium posture is the same person after we dealt with him and we showed him that I'm more important than what you are actually, then his position totally changed. And then he was, I hope you can see me. Can you? Then he was sitting like this. Then he would, during the whole interview, he would sit like this for years together. You see? So, but the problem is, my child, the problem is, if you get this into your head, that pulsatilla patients सामने में झुक के बैठते हैं, then you might miss out pulsatilla patients who are not doing that. Generally, a calcarea patient, you will see many a times when sits like a log, you let down the bag, वो bean bag जैसा होता है, you have seen a bean bag and it folds upon itself. Calcarea patient has this habit of sitting like that. But never, this is just one of the information. Because all calcarea will not do this. All lycopodium will not. The idea, see, when you ask this question, I could understand that the very idea of that this person is going to do only like this is a very erroneous idea. Chamomilla patients, I have seen lot of chamomilla patients who apparently were very, the term is apparently, who are very mild, civil and polite. And chamomilla worked very well. So don't, in homeopathy, please resist going about a particular idea. If you are there in tomorrow's seminar where we will be discussing the study of mathematics, you will see that this can lead to a great error. ऐसे single idea नहीं होना चाहिए. You should not have a single idea like this, because there can always be variations to this. Pulsatilla is a mild weeping individual, but you may find a pulsatilla person who is very irritable. In fact, irritability pulsatilla is 2 grade in repertory, and who is not at all mild. So if your mind is tuned to the fact that I am going to only look at pulsatilla when it is mild and weeping, suppose the patient, okay, let me, oh my God, we have only 10 minutes for this session, but still, let me put you in this way. Suppose the patient's vitality is very good and the patient is mentally healthy and the patient is only physically sick. Do you think that he is going to give you classical mental symptoms of pulsatilla? No, because his vitality does not need to express itself through mind. So if the vitality has no need to express through mind, the vitality will not. And the mind would be a healthy part. What are you going to do then? Then you will have to, in order to prescribe pulsatilla, you will have to depend upon amelioration in open air, evening aggravation, thirstlessness, hot patient, etc., etc., etc. So don't have this idea ki observation mein, if it tallies with your totality, well and good. If it does not tally, it has to be put aside. Saying that, let us go back because we would be running late otherwise. The actual difficulty is when the vitality expresses itself in a very difficult way. In an unconscious patient, what are you going to do? How are you going to proceed with the case taking? In an unconscious patient, remember how the patient is lying down, how the patient is sleeping. Because invariably, patient ko jaise bhi sulaya, patients have this tendency to roll back in the position in which they are comfortable. So the position of sleep will tell you so many things, and that you have to depend a lot on the history of the patient and on your observation. This is really going to be a difficult case. Specifically, say in my early days, I was called to Bombay to see a patient who was unconscious and he had a cerebrovascular accident. Post CVA, he was in a coma and he was lying listlessly, and I was there with a neurologist. The neurologist was accompanying me. So just to show them that I understand the case, I looked and then I talked to them that these should be the things which you are getting. He said yes, and then he had some faith in me. You know how it is. Unfortunately, we as homeopaths, we have to prove ourselves at every point of time. So, and then all of a sudden, I saw that the patient was becoming stiff. And that was not a convulsive stiffness. And then I realized that whenever there was a noise, some kind of noise, and he would stiffen up. So slightest noise was disturbing him. And then I asked for how was the urine output and what was the type of stool and how was he in general before that. And we prescribed opium. And believe me, opium brought him out of coma within 3 hours' time. By the time I reached back to Calcutta and I reached home, I had a phone call saying that the patient had come out of coma. So these cases are going to be difficult. In a case of an infant, in a case of a child, a newborn child, how are you going to do case taking? These cases are relatively still easy because the way child cries, these cries, and these cry, these are two different cries. You have to learn. Once you learn, and of course, that the mother will tell you. But what happens when during case taking, you are taking case taking of an adopted child? When you are doing case taking, as you go into past history, right? You are going to link up with the family history, you are going to link up with the miasmatic history of the parents, and you are going to come to one conclusion of one picture. Agreed? Now, what happens when you are taking a case of an adoption? Their presenting complaints tak tumko milega. Past history you will get. But after past history, you will see that nothing is matching up. Because the miasmatic state, the moment you go into the miasmatic stage, you will see. And this is so short that easily you can, even if they have not given you the information that this is an adopted child, you will know that this is an adopted child. Because the miasmatic state of the child and the parents will not meet. And in that case, the case taking becomes very difficult. So these are very difficult cases. In cases where you are not finding out any homeopathic generalities, the patient is not giving you any homeopathic generalities. They are only common symptoms. Then, of course, the case taking is difficult, but still you have common symptoms to prescribe on, and on intensified common symptoms, you can give medicine. But there are certain patients, you ask them, what is the problem? I have pain in the hand. So you say, okay, hand, what? I have this pain in the hand and I can't work. And then you say, what other problem? No, I don't have any other problem. Okay, but when is the pain in the hand is what? No. It is only when I'm working, then I have the pain. Do something about it. And then you say, do you have any other problems? Acidity, etc. No, I don't have any other problems. It's only the pain in the hand. Now, such cases, perhaps you will not be able to do anything. All you can do is maybe try out a medicine, but what I would suggest is this trying out of a medicine is not a good idea. You should always prescribe when you are sure. Your selected medicine may be wrong, it does not matter, but you should not prescribe till you are not sure of the medicine. So we talked to briefly talk over, we talked of two types of difficulties during case takings. One was self-made difficulties, which is because of our personality problems or errors in ourselves, which we have to identify ourselves and we have to understand ourselves and we have to rectify it suitably. How will we rectify it? First, we have to understand. How will we understand? The results will show. You have taken 5 cases in a day. 4 of your case takings were excellent and 1 case taking was a messed up case. So you have to think that why did I mess up the case? And you will find a reason, and that you discuss within yourself, you introspect within yourself, you discuss with friends, you go to your teachers, and you find out the solution. And the second is where the vitality is expressing itself in a very difficult way. Now, when the vitality is expressing itself in a very bad way, the first stage is to take, for a beginner, the first stage is to take these patients to your teacher and see how he handles them or how she handles them. And you learn through that, oh, okay, this is how the case was handled. I often tell my students, whenever my students refer a case to me, I say, don't refer a case to me like that. Whenever you bring a patient to me, your case taking, you come with the patient if possible, and your case taking must be there. I look at the student's case taking first, and then I do the case taking. And the student is sitting next to me. So automatically he or she understands where he or she has made a mistake. This is the way of when the vitality, because it is actually difficult. Initially, believe me, we do not know anything about observation. We know nothing about observation. I'll give you a simple example. Are you seeing my beard? I'm not shaven today. What do you observe and what do you infer from this? You're seeing my mustache also like this. It's not cut properly. So what do you observe and what do you infer? That this person is a sulfur individual. And I'm not, I believe my collars are also not very well I'm a little bit of a shabby person. My
Little
hand is-
shabby. Yeah.
So what do you observe and what do you infer? That you are talking to a sulfur patient? No. Yes.
A person with a busy schedule.
Come again.
A person with a busy schedule.
Come on. No person is so busy कि यार दाढ़ी करने का time नहीं मिला. I wish I was really a person with such a busy. See, you all are not. You all are missing out on the point. Now, see, I'll tell you how to observe, how to come to conclusions. The mustache shows that this person is, because this mustache does not grow in one day, right? This takes some time in growing. So this person is adjusted to such a kind. So he is not very particular about looks. That is one thing you get. Now, by my speech, by my way of talking, you should have got this idea that this person is very particular. Right? Agreed?
Yes, sir. Definitely.
He's very particular.
Yeah.
If a person is particular at one place and is not particular at another place, there is a contradiction.
Yes.
So is that contradiction coming out through his whole speech? No, it is not coming out. That means there has to be a reason for the beard.
Yes.
That should have been gone. It should not if the seminar is gone for him. He should have come clean shaven, but he has not come clean shaven. So there must be a reason. So the question should be, sir, why you are not shaved?
Hello, sir. Excuse me for 1 minute. Dr. Akshita, can you just kindly mute everyone? There is some sound coming from one of the doctors there. It's difficult to hear. Difficult to hear, ma'am.
Right?
Yeah, somebody's mic is on.
In a dialect which I am not understanding.
Yes.
So you see how you observe. So the shabbiness, the idea of shabbiness goes on. And then when somebody asks, I would say that I'm in mourning. And then whole idea comes out. If somebody was supposed to ask me that why are you not shaved, I would have said, I'm imagining that you're asking me, sir, why are you not shaved? And I will tell you that we lost a patient, जिसको मैं माँ बोलता था, a patient whom I used to call her my mother. We lost her 3 days back. She died of old age. She died very peacefully, and I am in mourning. Now, when I give you this information, you add it up with the whole information, my way of speech, how careful I am, how when a person is so careful about the patient, everything matches up. Right? So this is how we add to it. In the initial phases, if the vitality is bad, don't worry, you do a case taking. But if you are not sure of what is happening, please, don't make a mockery of the case, don't make a mockery of the patient, and don't prescribe for the patient unless you are not sure. You do the complete case taking. There are two ways of doing case taking. One is the artistic way, one is back to the basics. Ekdam, like an intern, you are doing case taking. So when you do the artistic way, go back to the basics, take all the points mechanically. Does not matter. Still, if you don't have a working picture, that is the time. Give the patient. I trust that all of the delegates are homeopathic doctors and there are no patients here. Akshata?
Only doctors, sir. Only doctors.
Only doctors, no? So in such case, give the patient a placebo and take the patient to somebody else and then see how he deals. Now, I think we have finished this part of the thing to the best of my ability. Are there any questions?
Sir, just a small
Yes.
thing. In your whole process of Dr. Jyoti here, Sir, I just wanted to ask, when you said all this beautifully, for a beginner, definitely it's very important. How we could put this, categorize this into an acute case, right? Whenever based on more on observation, like you said, how we could be handling this on observation basis, right?
But why do you say that acute case is based more on observation?
No. Probably one of the things, because many a times the patient would not be in a situation to talk or express the feelings on that basis. That's it.
Give me an example.
For an example, if a child is picked up by a father and got to the clinic saying that child के पेट में दर्द हो रहा है गए आधे घंटे से और कुछ बोल नहीं पा रहा है, कुछ भी मुंह से ले रहा है तो वो उल्टी करके निकल रहा है.
That's exactly what we said.
Yes.
That's exactly what we said. Where the patient is not being in a position to narrate.
Correct.
He is not being in a position to narrate.
Ha.
You will have to depend more on patient party.
Yes.
Patient party and your own observation.
On observation.
On your own observation. And
Yes.
then how to make you to observe. The easiest way, what I did was, I would be observing everything. There were times when I would go to marketplace and I would stand in the marketplace and I would be observing everybody around me. When I would be going in a bus, I would be observing everybody sitting. Is you have to take interest. Basically, if you are taking interest in the opposite person, that is how you learn the art of observation. This cannot be done in one way. This cannot be taught. You have to learn. One has to learn by himself or herself.
Absolutely. So how would you differentiate this with a pathological case taking? That was my question.
Okay. What exactly do you mean by pathological?
When I say pathology, especially if a person is having an issue with thyroid.
We are talking of sickness, right? Now, first of all, you have to know what is health and what is sickness. It is not very easy. I'll give you an example. क्या यार तुम मेरे को question पूछ रही हो? Is this a question to ask? Now you see, the person is irritable, right? But whether this irritability is a sign of health or is a sign of sickness, first you have to know. And this we miss out most of the times. The moment we get a mental symptom or the moment we get something, we take it as a symptom. You cannot. You ask me, what do you like to eat? And I say, I love eating sweets. And you write sweet 3+ as a symptom. It may not be a symptom at all. It may be a sign of my health. So first, you have to learn to differentiate what is a manifestation of health, because Hahnemann clearly says, what is the physician going to observe? He is going to take into note the deviations from the former healthy state of the now diseased individual. He is only going to take the deviations. But in order to take the deviations, you have to know what the healthy state was. So you have to have a very big background of knowledge where you will know and you will compare it with the present scenario to know whether this is healthy or this is sick. So when a pathological state comes, when say this child was crying, you are just going to observe how the child is crying. What is the See, two cries are entirely different. Then you're going to observe this. And of course, you're going to examine the patient. Such conditions, your examination should be very, 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 very complete. Do not miss out on physical examination. The other day, 3 days back, we had a patient, because of COVID situation, we see patients right now in the visiting room only. We don't take the patients inside. So there was one patient who was waiting outside and she was complaining that I have tremendous pain in the abdomen. And the relative said that this is a medical emergency, please, usko dekh lijiye. So we have this God's room inside, Thakur room. I asked them to go there and I told my assistant, ki jaake dekh lo, dekho, she's trying to manipulate you so that we can see her fast. And she was all crouched down like Colosseum, She was all crouched down like Colosseum. When I went to see her, my assistant saw her and she said, we can give her ignition. So I still, because the patient has come to see me, so I have to go. So officially I went there and she was all, wait, I'll show you. She was all crouched up like this, when I entered. This was her 𝐒𝐞𝐬𝐬𝐢𝐴. And I asked her, how are you feeling better? She says, दबाने से अच्छा लग रहा है, दबाने से अच्छा लग रहा है. So 𝐒𝐞𝐬𝐬𝐢𝐴, right? Typical 𝐒𝐞𝐬𝐬𝐢𝐴. What I did was, I did like this. Now, if there is an abdominal pain, you expect the abdomen to be soft. This kind of abdominal pain, you expect the abdomen to be soft? No way. Her abdomen was soft. And there was no tenderness. Believe me, when I'm doing like this, there was no tenderness. So she was manipulating us. Totally. I told her, I told my assistant what to give her. And when she walked out, I told another of my students, देखो वो जब बाहर जाती है ना, you see that patient, all pain is gone. You have to learn that this patient was trying to manipulate. You have to understand. I hope that answers your question. So are we ready to go to the next session? Are there any questions in this session? Are there any questions in this session?
Sir, a few years ago, you were showing that person who has only pain in hand, but he's saying pain in head. So it is only one symptom or two symptoms that you have seen.
Yeah.
In your
And that
practice,
also one symptom with no modifications, no modalities. So what was your question?
So question is, like, in a clinical setting, how do we handle such patients? I'm not talking about the medicine, or like you said that we should not prescribe.
See, agreed. Such cases are very difficult to handle. Some of them you will not be able to handle. You will have to leave that case. It is not necessary for you, even today. There are cases which I refuse to see, where I tell them that I am helpless to see you. I cannot do anything for you. What can you do? In that case, the moment you see, what you have to do is, you have to show to the patient that this information, somehow, you have to show to the patient that this information is not enough for you to come to the conclusion of a medicine. The moment you show to it, what we do is generally, suppose if the patient is saying this, I act as if I'm very much puzzled. I act that I'm puzzled and I can't do anything. What am I going to do? I've become very restless. Please help me. I beg, practically I beg symptoms from them. The moment the patient understands that the information, because he's come to you, why has he come to you? Basically, the patient has come to you to get well. This is one thing which we have to understand. Any patient, that lady who was acting, she came to me in order to get well. She has not come to see my face. My face is not so beautiful. She has a problem and she has come to. So once the patient, you have to make the patient understand at that point of time that this information is not enough for me to prescribe in any way. Once you make it clear to him, once the patient understands that, he will come up with his vitality will come up. Remember, read your organon medicine properly. In organon medicine, in a particular aphorism, I'm forgetting the aphorism, Hahnemann says that the vitality will show to the observing physician what is needed for him to know in order to cure. That means if you are blocked at this point of time, and if you show that confusion to the patient, if you transmit that confusion that this information is not enough, and you keep on talking, believe me, the information will reach from some other. Still, if the information does not come to you, you have nothing to prescribe on. Best thing to do at that point of time, if you want to keep the case in your hand, give a placebo and ask him to come again, or better still, take the patient to another doctor. Don't feel that you will be able to treat all cases. We will not be able to. We are not competent to treat all cases. It is very difficult. Are there any questions?
Yeah, sir. What to do in one-sided cases where there is only single symptom, like a patient doesn't want to tell?
I've been practicing. Okay, agreed. I've been practicing since 27 years, and classically one-sided diseases are very rare. I've hardly seen one-sided diseases. When you do, what happens is the patients treat them as one-sided. They are apparently one-sided. The moment you, when you're playing a guitar, when you touch the string properly at the right place, a particular type of a note comes, a particular type of a sound comes. You have to learn to see this resonance. The patient is coming to you, my dear, with a restriction. Is coming to you with a disease, all right. He's coming to you, I have a gallbladder stone. But my gallbladder stone is not the only problem. It is a restriction into my development where I could develop, as it is said in aphorism number 9, I am being stopped from that development. So he's coming to you with a restriction. And once you understand that, and once you put a thread there, once you touch that thread, the whole flow will come up. It is something like, I will tell you, the other day we were seeing a patient and is a homeopathic doctor. He had prescribed a particular medicine for his father during when the father was having an acute myocardial infarction, and the father died. So he felt that he had killed his father and he had not given the right medicine. This was approximately 1.5 years back. Since that point of time, he has not been practicing 1.5 years. He has not been practicing homeopathy. And he was carrying this guilt. Now, he brought his mother to us. We saw the mother. And then I said that you also need treatment, beta. He said, sir, no, I'm all right. So what I did, I knew that he is having a problem, but you cannot force him to take a medicine. So what I did was, I put a pin to mother. I told mother that he should take care of his health. So mother went home and she worked on the child. I knew the mother would work on the child. And when the next visit came, the son says, sir, please prescribe for me. I will take a medicine. Because my mother, practically he told me that my mother is eating my head out every day. So we got a chance. And we prescribed a medicine. I could understand through the talk that something is wrong. And we gave a medicine. And 1 month after that, he came and he says, sir, I would like to talk to you alone. So I thought that perhaps he has had a love affair and there's been a broken love affair. So we went inside and we were talking. And he said, I'm telling this for the first time. I feel I'm a criminal. And the whole thing came out. Why did it come out? Because I touched his cord. If I had not touched his cord, this thing would have proceeded for more time and it would have led to more complications. As a homeopathic physician, if you don't know how to touch a cord, you have to learn this. We, by you, I am meaning we. Please don't misunderstand. Don't feel that I am telling only you. All of us have to learn this, to touch the cord. And when you touch the cord, there is no case which is one-sided. It is always an apparently one-sided case. And if it is actually a one-sided case, which will be very few, whatever you get, you have to work with it. Whatever you get, pain in the hand. I was talking of pain in the hand while working. So you take pain in the hand while working. Working, you don't have a rubric while carrying anything. Or usme se whatever medicine is meeting up with the other person as a whole, you prescribe. If it is the right medicine, it will add up certain symptoms and you go on so on. Right. Can we proceed to the next?
Hello.
Yes.
Good afternoon, sir.
I'm not hearing. Sorry, I cannot hear.
Yes, sir, we can proceed.
Okay.
Hello.
Now, I'd like to ask a question. And
Hello.
Yes. I'd like to ask a question and I'd like an honest answer from all of you, or from any of you. This way of going, this way of studying, I mean, this way, should I proceed in the second session also like this, or should I change my approach? I mean, is this approach all right to you people?
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Yes, tell me.
Sir?
Yes.
In from aphorism 162 to 170, tells dealing cases with partial similar medicine.
Yes. Yes.
So
So what
should
is
we
your
do those? other cases where we are not getting, obviously we think
I'm
we are
not
missing
hearing you.
something.
Sorry, I
But
cannot
we
hear
have
you.
to prescribe.
You are talking of a partially selected medicine, yes? Then
Then we give that medicine, and
your voice,
on next visit or the visit
your
after
voice
that,
is cutting.
we get the complete.
Okay. Okay, I understand. Okay, I understand what he's saying. You are saying that. Just a second. You are saying that when a partially selected medicine is given, see, now if we open a discussion over here, I'm afraid the next session will not be able to go. If a partially selected medicine is at each point of time, you are not supposed to give partially selected medicine. You are supposed to give the best indicated medicine. This is number one. You are in homeopathy, you are not allowed, underline, you are not allowed to give a partially similar medicine. You have to give the most similar medicine. Because if you are giving a partially similar medicine, you are breaking the law. Now, if you are giving a partially similar medicine, तो फिर बॉस किसी को कोई भी मेडिसिन दे दो, then there is no need of individualization. Because one medicine, any medicine will be similar at some level or the other. But what exactly we mean by partially similar medicine is an indicated medicine which is not the most similar. In such a case, yes, what is going to happen is, if the patient is curable, if the vitality is curable, then there are going to be new symptoms. The vitality is going to express itself. Once the vitality becomes more and more and more and more satisfied, it is going to express itself more clearly. And once it expresses itself more clearly, you are going to get a clear-cut picture. That is true. But don't fall into this trap of giving a partially similar medicine. A partially similar medicine should never be given. Just a second. Hello. So, can we? Yes. আমি না একটা সেমিনারে আছি, কিছুক্ষণ পরে ফোন করতে পারবে? 5টার পরে, 5:30টার পরে? প্রচন্ড চুল করছে। তাহলে এক কাজ করো, আপাতত তোমার যে দানা ওষুধটা আছে, হ্যাঁ, সেটাকে একবার নিয়ে নাও এখন, নিয়ে আমাকে 2 ঘন্টা বলবে। Now see, you all did not understand the language, but what did the tone tell you? Now you should observe. You should observe.
That you're convincing the person on the opposite side about how an adjustment could be made.
No, I asked for an adjustment. She said, no, I'm in a great problem.
Yes.
So I suggested a way out, and I suggested it so convincingly that I'm sure that your problem will go down with a placebo. So you take this and call me up after 3 months. And the patient was placebo.
So that's convinced her. Yeah.
Yes. So this is what you have to observe and you have to understand.
Yes.
Good.
Doctor?
So,
Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello? Can I ask you a question, sir?
Yeah, sure.
Hello? Are you able to hear me?
Providingly the organizers don't mind, because we are already 15 minutes, 20 minutes into the second session.
Am I audible,
I would
sir?
prefer if we could start the second session, and then we can take the queries if we have time.
Okay, fine. So we'll take the queries afterwards. Let us start with the potency. Okay. Now here what I would like to do is, I would like to share the screen. Wait. Just a second. Share screen. Share screen. Yes, start. Okay, just a second. I'll take some time of yours while I'll have to find it out where it is actually. You all seeing this? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Selection of potency.
Yeah. Yes, yes.
Okay, so fine. How come I'm not moving to the next slide here? Something's gone wrong with my end. Just a second. It'll take some time to come. Okay. It's not going to the next slide.
Make it slide slow.
No, it's not responding. A second.
Slide slow.
Slideshow is all right. It's not responding. My system is very old, Baba. Okay, so.
Okay.
Sir, now it will come. It has shown in the.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So potency. Now, this is one of the most ambiguous aspect of homeopathy. Nobody knows much, and every one of us, we talk big. Let us start with this place. None of us know much about potency because nothing much has been actually written about it. And we talk big the way we do about miasms. Everybody will talk big about miasms, but when you actually come and ask what miasms are, then there will be no clear-cut answer. Or if you prescribe, if you say, how do you make a miasmatic prescription? Please show us. There will be no clear-cut answer because the ideas are very vague. And this is a major problem with the potency. The concept of potency, the concept of drug dynamization came into Hahnemann's mind originally. It was originally only a dilution. It was not a dilution and suppression. It was only a dilution. He wanted to reduce the bad effects of the medicines which we were using. So a dilution. And then it metamorphosized into dilution and suppression. Now, if we see selection of the potency, we have different kind of prescribers. We have some patients, some homeopaths, Kantians, classically. I'm a high potency man. I don't prescribe anything below 1M. 1M, 10M, 50M, CM. And against this, you have certain low potency prescribers.
Sir,
high
please
potency.
make it a slideshow, sir.
Yes?
Please make it a slideshow so that it comes bigger.
If I make it a slideshow, the problem is going to be, okay, that it will keep on changing, na? फिर हम stop कैसे करेगा बच्चे? How will I?
It's okay, sir, now.
Yeah, I think because it's on the mobile, probably.
No, this is on a tab. This is on a tab.
Okay, sir. We can make it. Continue,
We can see, sir.
So, you have certain high potency prescribers, the Kantians, the classical Kantians, and then you have low prescribers, people who used to follow. By the way, when I am talking, I assume that each one of us is following the laws and rules of homeopathy. That means each one of us are single medicine prescribers. We adhere to the rules and laws of homeopathy. Because if we don't, then we are not fit to be called homeopath, so we can say goodbye to this seminar. So there are certain high potency prescribers. There are certain low potency prescribers. Homeopaths who followed 𝐒𝐬𝐧 or boric, they were low prescribers. And then there are mixed type of prescribers who don't know much of more. Sometimes they go low, sometimes they go high. Most of us, we fall within this category. So a chronic case comes and we start with a 200. And then we see, or maybe 200 or 1M or 3200. We stay within that range. And then now you have some prescribers who are LM potency prescribers. They prescribe only LM potencies. According to the 6th edition of Organon of Medicine, they prescribe only LM potencies. And you will find very few prescribers. Believe me, I am yet to see I've not seen more than perhaps 2 or 3 prescribers in my life who are prescribing all sites of potencies at different stages. So the first thing is, when you are using a potency, don't fall into the trap of using one potency. Don't make a favorite potency. Just as Handyman had talked of favorite medicine, don't make a favorite potency. Chronic diseases, I'm going to use 200. Pathology, I'm going to use 30 or 6 or mother tincture. No. That is not the rule. The rule is what actually is a potency. What actually is a potency? We have 3 scales of potencies, right? Decimal scale, centesimal scale, and LM potencies. We are today mainly going to discuss between centesimal and LM potencies because I don't have a practical experience of using. I have used decimal potencies. But my practical experience is not far enough that what I say I can say with a conviction. So you have to learn, we have to learn in order to select the potency. The first point is you have to understand the reaction of the vitality. Because it has been said, stronger the vitality, higher the potency. Weaker the vitality, lower the potency. So a stronger vitality, how will it manifest itself? Definitely more characteristic symptoms, definitely more peculiar symptoms, more queer symptoms. The medicine would be easily indicated. The sickness would not be at a gross pathological level. The sickness would not be at the deeper organs. The sickness would be in more periphery. Right. In such a case, the vitality is good. This is before the application of the medicine. When such a case comes to us, where the medicine is very clear cut, whether it is acute or chronic, where the case is very clear, medicine is very clear, no important organs are involved, that is, sickness is more pertaining towards the periphery. There are a lot of characteristic symptoms, clear cut characteristic symptoms at the mental level, at the physical level, at the particular levels also. You can straight go higher because stronger the vitality, this patient is having a strong vitality, so needs a high potency. And when the reverse is the case, meaning the central organs are involved, there are no characteristic symptoms, there are only common symptoms, intensified common symptoms, then the vitality is bad, no clear-cut image is coming out, the vitality is bad, and you have to prescribe a lower potency. Here we are talking in terms of centesimal potencies initially. Because as we go into potencies, you will see that this is a very confusing thing and nobody has talked about it. So lower potency. But what happens when you have, in a case, a central pathology, a person is having a heart problem or a brain problem, that means sickness is in a very important place, and the person is also having characteristic symptoms. In that case, don't go that high, you start a little bit mediocre. This is a working knowledge which was taught to us in the colleges, which we started our practice with. Do we agree, everybody? Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Now, has any one of you, do you all use LM potencies?
No, sir.
You all don't use LM.
Never, sir.
Never. Okay.
Never, sir.
Okay. So you all want me to talk about
No, sir.
LM potencies or you all don't want me to talk about LM potencies?
No, sir. We want you to speak about it because
So,
we also want to use the same potency.
so I do use LM at times as per the case requirement. If you could highlight a few points, it would be great. I do use, sir, here
Okay, so
in
you
Mumbai.
use,
Can
so
talk,
you
sir. You
use
can talk.
LM also and you use centesimal also.
Yes. And plussing also.
And plussing also. See, since I don't use plussing, I don't have much idea about plussing. So plussings we do only when the next potency is not available with us. That condition we do plussings. Otherwise, I don't do plussing. Anyhow, we'll talk about now. See, whenever you are giving any medicine, any potency to an individual who is reacting, it is the patient's vitality which is reacting. Right? Right. Now, when the vitality reacts, now we are going into the realms which has not been written in the books. The doctor who's recently just now said that I use also LM potencies. I don't know how you all see your follow-up cases, but at 44 KR, I mean at 44 Kabir Road, that is the address of my chamber. Okay, so we call it 44 KR, Kabir Road, so 44 KR. At 44 KR, we have seen in umpteen, we use LM potencies as well as centesimal potencies. We have seen that many a time in a centesimal case, how is the repetition in a centesimal potency? You give the medicine and you wait. And then whole of the observation is over, and then you either repeat or you go to the next higher potency or you change the medicine. That means, I don't know what you all do while repetition, but at 44 KR, we follow the laws totally. That means what we do is we follow Kent's observations, we follow Herring's law of cure, and we have added, my teacher George Vitrukas has added certain modifications to Kent's observations. At 44 KR, we have added some more modifications to Kent's observations, and we work according to that. That whether the medicine is right or not. And there we see a peculiar thing, that there are patients whose vitality is not satisfied with, say, 2 doses. I'll give you an example how first time it struck me. We had this patient who was suffering from an osteoarthritic change in the knee, and she was in great pain and she could not walk properly, and we had prescribed calcarea fluor 30 because it was she also had high blood pressure and she was a heart patient, and so thinking to give her a peripheral a lower potency, we prescribed a calcarea fluor 30. I had prescribed calcarea fluor 30, 4 doses to be taken twice daily for 2 days, and then placebos for 1 week's time, and to report. After 1 week, there was no change, and she said there is no change. I said, okay, I'll work up the case. Aap chamber mein aa jaiye. Please come to my chamber. And she did not come to my chamber. And for a doctor, whenever I would go home, I would see her sitting on the roads in the sunlight, basking in the sun. So for some days when I would see her, I would change my road and I would go to other, because for a doctor, she has to come to me. Once or twice I can ask her, but I cannot ask her every day. So I had changed my route. And after a month's time, I happened to go from there. And I asked her that, Ma, how are you? She said, wo dawai aap pehle hi de diye hote to acha hota na. I'm much better. I said, which medicine? What she had done was the calcarea fluor 34 doses which we had given her, that had given her some relief. So she went to the local homeopathic shop and she purchased calcarea fluor 30, and she was eating calcarea fluor 30 once daily for 1 month's time. And believe me, when I say I got a shock of my life, first I shouted at her that you should not have done this, but she said, I'm much better. So I said, चलिए अब घर में चलिए मैं आपको देख लेता हूँ. We took her. She used to sit on a footpath just near her house. We took her to our house. I saw the crepitations in the legs were much better. I happened to see her blood pressure, and it had stabilized. Over and above that, she tells me कि अब उसका तो दवाई का दरकार नहीं है, वो दवाई से ठीक हो जाएंगे. मतलब my knee is better with calcarea fluor, so I will. But I've developed this itching. Please do something about this. And this is itching a lot, and this itching I used to have 30 to 35 years back. And I put my hands on my forehead. Calcarea floor 30 for 1 month has made the patient produce, has not only stabilized her blood pressure, has improved her cardiac status, has improved her knee status, and has brought a peripheral symptom and has brought an old symptom. So Kant's observations, Herring's law of cure, everything is telling me that the treatment which was done was right. And what was the treatment? Calcarea floor 30 once daily for 1 month. That means this patient was requiring 31 months. And I had this question and I went to my teacher and I asked. He said, it's not possible. He said, you cannot know, so you will have to go by trial and error. And I thought that, no, trial and error is not right. So I went to George Vitulkas and he smiled at me. I said, sir, this is what my practical... He says, yes, you will see this in some cases. Where you see in such cases, you will have to give centesimal in a repeated state. I said, sir, even 1M? He said, yes. Then he talked of his cases where he had given 1M for 7 days, 10 days. And while studying organoid medicine, all of a sudden clicked into my mind that here the vitality was showing that it needed frequent repetition. That means it needed, this was a centesimal type of reaction, this was an LM type of reaction to a centesimal potency. When you give LM potencies, what happens? The patient starts improving, then you go to the next higher potency. If your medicine selected is right, the patient keeps on improving and the aggravation comes the last. Whereas when you go with centesimal potencies, you get Kant's observations first. In LM potencies, you don't get classical Kant's observations. Remember this. When you are talking of Kant's observations, it is only the centesimal potency. Because Kant had not worked with LM potencies, you will not get LM potencies, in LM potencies Kant's reactions. You will get when the vitality is showing a centesimal type of reaction in an LM potency. That means you have prescribed an LM potency and you will see in some cases, after the first dose or the second dose, the patient is aggravated. And then you stop the potency and there is an amelioration. Here, what do? You use LM potency only, but in a centesimal manner. Centesimal means just wait karke you change. You wait for some time till the patient is better, then the symptoms are recurring. So you repeat. So you get two types of reactions of the vitality. One is a centesimal type, one is an LM type. Centesimal type of reaction, the vitality can produce to a centesimal potency, and centesimal type of reaction, it can produce to LM potency. By centesimal type of reaction, we mean classical Kant's observations you will get, whether the medicine is right or wrong. And similarly, it can show an LM type of reaction to a centesimal potency where the patient will need the same potency, frequent repetition, continuous repetition, or LM type of reaction to LM potency. I hope, and this is a very confusing idea, but let it percolate into you. Think about it. If you all have any questions, आज अगर नहीं पूछ सकते हैं, बाद में, I am always available. You can ask me and we can always talk about this. Now, first question is, what is the criteria for deciding the scale of the potency? I would have skipped this if you all had not said if we want to listen about both. Since you all want to listen about both. So first is, what is the criteria for deciding the scale of potency? That is, before the administration of the medicine and after the administration of medicine. So let us talk about that. Now we go to before. When it comes to centesimal, strong vitality as evidenced by clear totality and remedy image, a relatively superficial pathology wherein the physician feels that the action of the dose is going to last long. High center of gravity, that is, prescribing symptoms are in the mind and generalities. In such a case, you use a centesimal potency. Which potency you will use is a different thing. So essentially here, you are talking in terms of a clear-cut medicine, where the medicine is clearly indicated. That is what you mean by strong vitality. And LM potency, clear remedy image. The medicine is relatively clear, but with a relatively deep pathology. The physician feels that the action of the dose is going to be of a short duration and of frequent repetition is necessary, and moreover, the vitality is not very good. Those cases where you feel that this Ks's observation, the amelioration lasts too short amelioration of symptoms. In those kinds, where you feel that the repetition is going to be frequent. In such a case, it is better to start with LM. This is preferably before you make you differentiate, and then after the administration of the medicine. As far as after the administration of the medicine is concerned, is always the nature of the reaction. In centesimal, you are going to get Ks's observations. So if the vitality is showing you Ks's observations, that means the vitality is to any stimulus, it is reacting in a centesimal way. So in that condition, centesimal potency has to be given. So if you have given the patient LM potency, shift to the centesimal potency. Or better still, give LM potency in LM manner. Give LM potencies in centesimal manner. And when it comes to LM, the nature of the reaction, providingly the right medicine is given, amelioration starting from beginning, or sometimes in the initial cases, if a wrong medicine is given in an LM potency, what is going to happen? What is going to happen if a wrong medicine is given? It is going to produce its own symptoms, which is called a false proof. That means the vitality is reacting in that way. Keep the patient on LM potency, go to the next medicine. Now, this is in brief selection of whether you're going to go to centesimal potency or LM potencies. Now, when you are going to select in centesimal cases, before the administration of the medicine, just a second, I'm exhausted. This is the time, I would have perhaps the time has got into me. I'm a person who likes to keep things by time now. Now see, so what will I do? This, my manner of drinking, it was not necessitated. I did not need to drink, but I am drinking so that in order to take away that time block from my face. This is the same thing which you do in casting. Good. So criteria for selection of potencies in centesimal scale. Once again, we'll talk about before the administration of the medicine and after the administration of the medicine. More clearer the remedy image, higher the potency. Now mind well, this more clearer the remedy image is a very big problem, because this totally depends upon your idea, your materia medica, your idea of a medicine. Some time back, we had a patient and was referred to us by a homeopath. Was not referred to us. He had gone to a homeopath and he was under the treatment of a homeopath, and the homeopath had given him pulsatilla in repeated potencies. It did not work, and that had prescribed natramur in repeated potencies, and prescribed starting from 30, 200, 1M, 10M, 50M, CM, and it had produced no change. And that person came to us. So I called up the doctor and I said, it's very rare that we see a single medicine prescriber nowadays. Thank you very much. The patient has come to me. So the doctor said, it's a classical case of natramur. And there has been an improvement after natramur. I don't know why the patient came to you. The doctor felt that there was an improvement, because what had happened was that the patient was suffering from an acidity. After natramur, the acidity had gone. but it was replaced by some other problem. It was a deeper problem. And that doctor had taken that as another problem and had prescribed Netramur there. And that had gone. And now there is a state where the patient is psychologically depressed and has come to us. And to me, when I did the case taking, even before his Netramur state and before his pulsatilla state, when his problem had started, from that point onwards, before Netramur, before pulsatilla, the case was clearly staphysemia. There was no iota of pulsatilla, there was no iota of Netramur. So this clear remedy image is a very, very problematic thing. But if the patient's vitality, because you don't know, I mean, our image, believe me, our knowledge of mathematics today, if I say, I ask anybody that one medicine which you know very well, and somebody says pulsatilla, and I say, tell me 50 symptoms of pulsatilla. You will not be able to say it. I will not, forget you people, I will not be able to say. Our remedy image is, we don't have anything, our knowledge of mathematics is next to zero. Is next to zero, is not zero. Otherwise, how are we treating patients? How are we curing patients? Is not very good. Is not very good. The moment you have a sulfur patient who is chilly, you stop thinking about sulfur. Because my remedy image of sulfur is a hot patient, but sulfur can be chilly patient. The moment you talk of Netramur and is a chilly patient, you say, no, Netramur is always a hot patient. How can Netramur be a chilly patient? But third generation Netramur, if you have that link, if you can find out that link, is going to be highly chilly, is going to be as chilly as a Solino patient. But it has to be a third generation. I didn't learn this. My teachers have taught me this. They have told me. And I was thinking. So, more clearer the remedy image, higher the potency. Totality comprising of uncommon peculiar characteristic symptoms, higher the potency. How high? Unfortunately, maybe if we were doing this talk after 5 years or 7 years, maybe I'll be able to tell you. Today I can tell you, but in order to do that, wait, I'll tell you. Peripheral and less restrictive pathology, higher potency. And then I've written with dots, where does the physician want the vitality to react? This is entirely a research topic and this is entirely different. But before coming to that, we talked about higher potencies. Now, high the potencies. Maybe there is a way to know this. Those of you, have you heard 𝐾𝐲𝐿𝐵𝐿𝐵𝐿𝐵 name? I mean, are there any students of 𝐾𝐲𝐿𝐵𝐿𝐵𝐿𝐵 over here, other than me? Are there any students of 𝐾𝐲𝐿𝐵𝐿𝐵𝐿𝐵 over here?
Have done one workshop, sir.
You have done one workshop with him.
Yes,
okay, very good. Very good. Which workshop did you do with him?
It was related to more of blocks in pathological cases.
Blocks in pathology. Okay. Now, see, if you study under him, you will see we see acute diseases and chronic diseases as separate, right? But if you notice, if you study Hahnemann very well, he says acute diseases are a transient explosion of the latent soul. That means that acute diseases and chronic diseases are related. If you see very well, in deep-seated chronic cases, you will not see acute individual cases. And patients who suffer from classical acute diseases, they do not have very deep chronic pathology. That means as the vitality goes down, the tendency of acutes goes down and the tendency of chronic increases. So in a bad vitality, in a very bad vitality, there will only be chronics and no acutes. And in a very good vitality, there will only be acutes and no underlying chronic. That means latent chronic. Vitulkas has given a scale of potencies here. He has divided this whole range into groups and he has divided this whole range of vitality where at one end there are deep-seated chronics, with no acutes. This is one end, and the other end is acutes with no chronics or latent chronics. He has divided this whole zone into four groups. Group 1, Group 2, Group 3, Group 4, or Group A, B, C, D. And then he says A, B, where there are frequent acutes also, there if the medicine is indicated, you can straight go to 10M. Is no issues. 10M or 50M. Group 3, where there are deep-seated chronics and very mild acutes in such patients, 200 to 1M. And group 4, where acutes, no acutes, or if acutes come, they are very dangerous acutes, they are fatal acutes, and deep-seated chronic conditions, mother tincture, 630. So this is one. But I've been following Vitulka, so for me, this is one scale. But unless you understand this group idea, you will not be able to use potencies that way. So, but still, I'm putting the idea into. The idea which you people can use is more clearer, the remedy image, more characteristics, etc., etc. Now, there's the fourth point which I've said. Where does the physician want the vitality to react? I'll just touch on this. If you cannot understand it, don't try to understand this. Please, otherwise you will make a mess of your prescriptions. We are also supposed to not only throw light, but what the future brings, how the research will work. Somebody had talked of partially similar medicine. There will be many times when you will see a patient, for his development, you want a particular reaction. For example, let us give an example. You have a student who is facing an exam and he is having a memory problem and he is having a pain in the hand and he is having an abdominal problem. He is having a pain in the left hand. In such a case, what ideal reaction do you want from him? You want his mental state to become all right first and not his peripheral state. Even if his peripheral state is not, it does not become all right, it's all right. You want the action in the central place. And say you have another person who is having acne, a model who is having an acne and who is also having an anxiety and has come to you there, and she has a modeling show within a week's time. You want the action to be there on the periphery. So there, what you are doing is you are asking the vitality to not to act optimally. When the vitality acts optimally, that is according to aphorism number 2, a particular pattern is going to occur. But here you are of yourself, you are requesting the vitality to act either suboptimally or above-optimally. That means either to act only peripherally or centrally. And therefore, what you will do is, you will, if you want the vitality to act peripherally, you will not give the optimum potency. If you are feeling that the optimum potency is 200, but you want change only at the peripheral level, go to a lower potency and you will see that there will be only a change at the lower level. Or you want change only at the central level. You don't want a change in the peripheral level. And the optimum potency is 200. Go to the higher level. We have tried this out because this will happen many a times. Today we don't have the time to talk of this. Now, this we were talking of selection of potency before the administration of the medicine. Now, after the administration of the medicine. In case the previously selected medicine was right, but the potency was under, as evidenced by modified 𝐾𝐬's observation. Aha. We'll have to go into that now. See, 𝐾𝐬's observations all of you know that Kant's observations tell you whether the medicine selected was right or wrong, whether the patient was curable or not. But have you ever thought that, suppose say you have a patient who has a homeopathic aggravation and the amelioration is in the mental journals first and there is no amelioration in physical journals. And in another patient, that is a homeopathic aggravation followed by amelioration in the physical symptoms, but no amelioration in the mental symptoms. In both the cases, medicine selected are right. But what is the difference in the observation? The modified Kant's observations, for this we will have to study modified Kant's observations, which is beyond the scope of this discussion. We work with at least 63 modified Kant's observations in the chamber, 44 Kr, which will tell you whether your medicine was right or wrong and whether your potency was right or wrong. So, by modified Kant's observation, if you feel that your potency was lower, then you go to higher. Or if by modified Kant's observation, if you thought potency was over, you can go down to a lower potency. I'll give you a classical way to understand this at your level, not to make it very complex. Say you have prescribed pulsatilla, and today we keep on coming to pulsatilla. You have prescribed pulsatilla on the basis of a mild weeping individual who is aggravated in the evening, who is thirstless, and who has a pain in the legs, which is ameliorated by walking, which is ameliorated by slow motion, and you have prescribed pulsatilla in the 200 potency. And the patient had a severe aggravation of the leg pain and then amelioration, but patient is still having leg pain, the leg pains are better. The thirst has improved. And now the patient says, is moderately better in open air, that intensity has gone down. But the patient says repeatedly that I cannot do without company. So now the totality is still pulsatilla, but you have added mental symptom that the patient is wanting company. So if you look at pulsatilla evaluation of symptoms, it has gone up. It has become more central. So now is the time for you to go from 200 to 1. That is how you go about it. So this is after the administration of the medicine. I hope that more or less, so in the initial phases, first you have to decide is which scale you are going to use. And then after using of the scale, before how you are going to select, we mainly kept. Now let us talk about LM potencies. Somebody was talking about LM potencies. LM potencies where you need frequent repetitions. But be very careful because in LM potencies, aisa na ho that after giving 8 or 10 potencies, then you realize that your medicine selected has been wrong. So when to go for LM type of potencies, when once or twice after giving a medicine, if you are seeing that there is an LM type of reaction, go with LM potencies. And then see. I think I tried to hurry through. I would have otherwise not hurried through, but I finished within 5. So now if there are any questions, tell me. I have this thing for timing. The last slide is a lot of questions and a lot of exclamation marks. A lot of questions. We have to solve these potency problems so that selection of potency also becomes an exact science, as is the selected of medicine. It is like, in the previous days, older days, there were these radios with, now I can stop the sharing. Okay. Now I stop sharing. In the older days, remember, there was those radios where you got a station and then you fine-tuned the station. You fine-tune the station, then you could hear more properly. There were 2 knobs in the meters, radio adjusting knobs. This is like that. Selection of the medicine is the first thing. Then you go to potencies, you have to adjust the potency. And then once we have learned how to adjust potencies, then someday we will talk of how to know whether to give 1 dose or 2 dose or 4 dose or 5 dose. So tell me, I am at your service. I have completed my session to the best of my ability. Any questions?
Doctor, good afternoon.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening. I'm sorry. I have 2 questions. First question is regarding Kent for this potency C, and second question would be answered later when you'll finish this session. First question is, in case we follow this 30, 200, 1000, 10,000, and we go normally to CM. Instead of going CM, if the remedy is working very well, why we could not or we should not use 50 M, not as a LM, but as a 50 M in between 10,000 and CM. What's your opinion? How do you do in case? In case to balance, rather than 10,000 jump to CM, we go through to have a balanced treatment. Please.
Yeah, but then we have a 50 M potency. 50 M is available. 10 M, 50 M, and then you go to CM. From 10 M, you don't jump to CM.
Okay.
10 M, you have a 50 M potency available. That is number one. Now, if the question was that from 200, why do you go to 1000? Why you don't go to 500? Or why don't you go to 700? Theoretically.
Rarely available 500, you know.
Yeah, it's not available, but we could have made it available. Kent was using 41 M. Kent was using 37 M. Now, if that is the question, I have no answer to that. But 50 M is available.
Yeah.
You have 30s, 200, 1M, 10M, 50M, and CM. So 50M is available. So you should use it.
Okay, thank you. Second, maybe I'll do the question later when you'll be finishing this chapter. Thank you very much.
So are there any takers? Are there any? So what I was saying was that this is one thing where we need to work on potencies. But anything which we work on should not be done arbitrarily. It should be based on laws. The Kent's observations, it has Kent's 12 observations. The first thing is we have to, how will I know what are the modifications of Kent's observations? First, you have to base your practice on Kent's 12 observations and Heading's law of cure. How many of us do that? A serious question. How many of us do it? What we do is, the patient has come to me with a headache, I prescribe a medicine, the patient says, I'm better. Well, good, we give placebo, I'm giving a single medicine, and the moment the patient says that my headache is recurring, I again repeat a medicine. No, this is not to be done. This is not homeopathy in its essence. You have to wait till the totality comes back. The totality for the medicine which you had prescribed comes back, or the totality of a new medicine comes. So first, you have to base your practice on the laws. Once you base your practice on laws, then we will get additional informations. There's a modification of modified Kent's observations, what we talked of, and then gradually the idea of potencies will come. So I rest my case. That is why I put question marks. We have to solve those question marks, and the end, once we answer that, believe me, we will be able to treat our patients much better. जो बीच में जो homeopathic aggravations we get, those will be minimized, and we will be able to do a better patient care. So, questions. A brief time for questions, and then we stop.
Yes, we can take 2-3 more questions if anyone has.
That gentleman was saying that he had a second question. He said,
I will do. Thank you, doctor. Thank you very much. Could you please give some more examples of weeping, crying, and striking as you did it before, to let us have a good comments to bring to understand all different type of, not only the children, also adults, as you told the pretending woman, and she did it. Thank you very much.
Okay. See, right now it's not coming to me. What happens is, whenever I talk, it comes from within. So we'll do one thing. We'll be studying Matya Madika tomorrow. Methodology of studying Matya Madika tomorrow. That is for the time when we will come. See, if you look at Ignatia crying, and if you see Natramule crying, there is a lot of, you will see a lot of similarity and you will see a lot of difference. In Ignatia, you will see a spasm, See, is crying and then is controlling herself. I mean, maybe at this point of time, it's not coming out very easily. So I'm trying to bring it out. That's why it's not coming as it was coming before. Is that controlling and loss of control crying? Whereas if you see a Natramule, in case of even an adult, is more of a silent crying, and silent prolonged crying is something very wonderful. By wonderful, I don't mean that you become happy to say it, but that crying is so characteristic that if you are able to see it once, you are very fortunate. Is a prolonged crying with a very deep grief inside, and as if I've been misunderstood, which is different from staphysagria. In staphysagria, when the crying is there, is more of an indignation, is more of an insulted thing. Maybe someday, I mean, this could have happened better, if I had all of you in front of me. Then this would have come better. That is why I want interaction. It's not coming now, but if given a chance and if it is possible, I will definitely do the best of my ability. Urgentum nitricum crying, bryonia crying, Rustox crying. All of these patients weep. Bryonia cries, Gelsemium cries. But see, it is as Vitulka says, that each remedy, each medicine has an essential to it. It's not essence, it's an essential to it. And that goes into each of the symptoms which are being manifested. So the mildness of pulsatilla will denote the manner in which the pulsatilla symptoms develop. There is a mildness to it also. Okay, are there any other questions?
Hello.
Yes.
Sir, any specific questions to be asked in fever cases or any checklist can you provide for fever cases?
What do you mean by checklist? What
Any
exactly?
limited number of questions to be asked?
I can tell you what I do. I can tell you what I do. What we do is we try to find out how it has started, since when it has started, whether that is a plausible etiological factor or not. That is number one. During the fever, how did it start? Whether did it start with any chill or there was the heat just straight off? If there was patient is saying there is a chill, then we definitely try to inquire that was there any particular part from where the chill started and how it spread. Because if you go to Allen's fever, you will see that, I mean, if you read your Matya Madika, in some cases the chill starts from the fingers and then it shifts. In Gelsemium, the chill is up and down in the spine. So we try to verify that. Then we go to heat stage, we go to perspiration stage, and then we find out that what are the other associated symptoms, what other things are bothering you. Generally, this is what we do. So I actually, over the years, I've lost checklist of anything, everything. I don't have a checklist for anything, because to me, individualization is such a thing that I know, but you should have a checklist. So for beginners, you should have a checklist. So the checklist is this, that first of all, you verify how the fever has been coming, whether it is intermittent or remittent or continuous. If it is an intermittent, has there been a chill stage, heat stage, and stage, perspiration stage? You take a detailing of all those, and you take detailing of associated complaints. And in fever, in acute condition, remember one thing, when you are taking desire aversions, please compare it with, at least try to compare it with the previous desire aversions. Because say if the patient he was always thirsty, and now he's coming to you and he says he's very thirsty, and you take him as thirsty, it's not true. I mean, it won't serve the purpose. What you have to do is that, were you as thirsty as before, or you are thirsty only after fever? If the patient is thirsty after fever, then that thirst is of importance. But if the patient is not thirsty, I mean, he is as thirsty as he was before, then that thirst has no importance. This is where we make mistakes. You have to keep on comparing.
Hello, sir.
Sir, hello.
Sir. Good evening, sir. Good evening,
Hello.
sir.
Good evening.
Good evening. Sir, actually, what is the duration of selected medicine? Duration of the selected medicine.
Okay. See,
Suppose
okay.
that, sir.
Okay, I understand. I understand your question. Actually, okay, I understand. But
actually, in 𝐾𝐬𝐿 written, but nowadays, modern days, what is the actual duration of the medicine, sir?
Okay, fine. Let me give you an answer to this. Let me ask you certain questions. The medicine acts on what?
Vitality of the patient. Vital force.
It acts on the vitality. Now, so here the action of the medicine is totally dependent upon how long the vitality allows it to act, right? Right or wrong?
Okay, sir.
Right. I have had patients not long back, just 1 year or 2 years back or 3 years back, where capsicum 30, 2 doses had acted for 16 months. 16 months we were getting an improvement. The observation, aggravation followed by amelioration was over after 16 months. Until 16 months we are waiting. And we have also had patients, an astrocytoma of the brain, where we prescribed gelcimium 1 m and we were prescribing 1 m every 3 hours. And the patient was needing a repetition every 3 hours. So how long the medicine is going to act, the best answer is it will depend totally upon the vitality of the patient, depending upon the sickness. Depending, number one, upon the sickness of the patient. Number two, whether anything has been done by the patient to obstruct the action of the medicine. For example, the patient's vitality is good and you give him Rustox. And now after Rustox, he takes a very heavy shower with cold water. In all possibilities, if the patient is susceptible to bathing, then Rustox may get antidote. Then Rustox will act for a shorter time. But here also, mind well, if he is not susceptible to bathing and he takes a bath, then Rustox will keep on acting. So this is totally dependent upon the vitality. See, in what Kent, it's not Kent, actually Gibson-Miller has given that drug relationship, and there the days which are given are not clinical trials. Those are during proving. That during proving the medicine acted for so many days. Now automatically during sickness the medicine is going to act for a longer time. Usse to longer time act karega. But from one vitality to another vitality it will depend. It will vary. Hello. No, that question is. So it will depend upon the vitality. Then whether the medicine is acting or not, how will I know, sir, whether the medicine is acting or not? That should be the next question. The answer is you have to follow the Kent's observations. As long as the Kent's observations are being followed, are continuous, the medicine is active. It may be 1 month, it may be 1 day, it may be 2 months, it may be 1 year.
So excuse me, for this, can we also say that Boric at the end of his book has also written the duration of the action of medicines. Of course, the most important thing is the vitality, which we have to consider and keep in mind. But for every action of the medicine, Boric can be referred to understand depending on what medication at what potency has been given. Because can we do that also? Can we do that also, sir?
Wait. Now see, first of all, with Boric,
Yes, sir.
idea is where he mentions the dose.
Yes, sir.
Okay, where he mentions the dose, he was always a low potency person, right?
Yes, yes.
You will hardly see in Boric a 200 potency.
Yes.
You will not see a 200 potency or a 1M potency. So
Yes.
there's only dose. And to go about dose from Boric, to me is questionable because he was a low potency prescriber. And there he does not talk of duration actually. And in the end,
Yes, sir. Along with relationship of medicines, he also mentions.
Yes, that is actually not Boric, okay? That is actually, once again, Gibson-Miller.
Yes, Gibson-Miller along with Kent's understanding and observations. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So there, this list is essentially of provings.
Yes, sir.
Essentially of provings. It is not of clinical trials.
Yes,
it is
sir.
of provings.
Yes,
now, automatically, during treatment, the treatment part, see, in treatment, the patient is more sensitive to that medicine. During proving, the sensitivity had to be produced. But during treatment, the patient had already exhibited a morbid susceptibility. So that is preferably, assumably, it is going to last longer than what the list was over here. And that also it depends upon whether you have given an optimum potency or a suburb. For example, the patient was needing 200 and you have given 30. Don't expect it to last so long. You see?
Hello, sir. Hello, sir.
Yes.
I have a question to ask, sir. So, can you please explain the remedies that follows well, how to give the medicines and what to see?
That is actually that is not within the scope of this lecture. But anyhow,
Materia medica.
no, since you asked, I'll tell you. See what happens is. Have you seen a relay race?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Now what happens in a relay race? The person hands the baton to another person of his team. He does not give it to the other baton to the other person's team. He gives it to his team, no?
Right, sir.
Right? How does he know that he belongs to my team? वो पहले से पता रहता है. They know. Similarly, when the vitality is sick, what is sickness? What does it mean? It means that vitality is exhibiting a morbid susceptibility. Right? There, when you satisfy that susceptibility, automatically that morbid susceptibility, if it is cured totally, it is all right. Otherwise, that will generate to a next morbid susceptibility, which will be related to the previous susceptibility. And then the relationships will come in. And that the way of working would be, the symptoms would change and it would now point to the next medicine. You give bryonia and the patient is much better, but now bryonia symptoms are changed to rust tox.
Yes,
where bryonia was aggravation from motion, this is aggravation from first motion and amelioration from motion. So the totality has changed. Bryonia has changed to rust tox. Now you give rust tox. That is how it changes. It is always related upon susceptibility. You have to find that out. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
But the best idea still is not to follow this relation and at each time to go by the totality of symptoms. So sulfur ke baad mein, I have to prescribe calcarea. Get that idea out of your mind. After sulfur,
depending upon the totality.
Calcarea, but if after sulfur rust tox comes, I will give rust tox.
Yes, sir. Yes.
That is a
thank you.